Hello, welcome to this presentation on what Quench is. I'm Thomas Barlow. I am the operations staff at the Independent Media Association. I'm also crazily lit because I'm having blinds put in today. So you can decide whether you think I look like a ghost or an angel. I prefer you to think I was an angel, if at all possible. I'm joined today by Salman Farsi, Hussein Kasai from Quench, and also Ricky Blue from Real Media, and Sasha Josette from Breathe. Myself, Sasha, and Ricky will be asking some questions after a presentation, but what we're going to do first and foremost is let Hussein and maybe someone a bit explain what Quench is, what's great about it, and why it is important for independent media to get involved, if at all possible. So hand it over to you, Hussein.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. It is really good to be on. And as you mentioned, my name is Hussein. I'm the founder here at Quench. And I'll just pause there, Salman, to do a brief intro.
Hi, everyone. I'm Salman Farsi. I'm the head of comms for Quench, and I've worked across global and national media and press in the past. And I've also had the pleasure of working with some of the Independent Media Association members too.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
And so both Salman and I, we are very keen followers of independent media and follow quite a few of the members here. And we started Quench just about a year ago. We're a team of 15, and our focus is a technology infrastructure provider to help content producers be able to launch their own direct-to-consumer video channels. I'll explain a little bit more on what that means. Giving you the broader context in that you're predominantly going to be print first, and either you're considering video or you already have a video offering and you're considering strategically where that could go. This is going to be particularly relevant if that is something that you're thinking about. And our focus is predominantly to, as a video first and video only technology company provider, it's helping partners think through their strategy. And then if they're interested, potentially working together. But the main thrust of the 10 slides that I have shared here, I have to share with you, is to think through a little bit about, in our view, what your strategy ought to be. So when we start partnering with video creators, the first question that we ask is your content niche or mass appeal? And this, in many ways, anchors what the strategy should be. And with that, what I specifically mean is that niche content creators typically generate around 10,000 views or fewer consistently per video that they release. It could be 1,000, it could be 2,000, it's essentially in the low thousands. Whereas mass appeal content creators are consistently getting 1 million or more views per content that they, for the things that they release. Now, we all naturally have an ambition for anything that we release for that to reach every single person on the planet. But this essentially comes down to what is the appeal. And as far as independent news goes, for the most part, given the limited resources, you're mostly known for going in depth on a handful of things. And as such, we have a very committed subset of the broader audience that's available, the 7.5 billion people across the world that are going to be very, very committed to watching your specific content. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there is mass appeal content that typically sells traffic. I'm going to say mainstream media is in that, and this is not in any way a value judgment. I think all of us here on this call are specifically very mindful of the many shortfalls of mainstream media, and that's why we are all supporters of or working with independent media.
Can I pause you for 2 ticks there, Hussein?
Please.
Your microphone is a bit fuzzy. I'm just checking with the other listeners on the call whether that's the case. Yeah, it's quite fuzzy. I'm just wondering if you've got a separate mic. I'm sorry to pause you in the thing.
No problem. I've just taken my headphones off. Is that any better?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Perfect.
That's a lot better. Thank you.
So mass appeal, it's entertainers, mainstream media that are designed to get as many views as possible, and it's underpinned by selling ads predominantly. And if you consider the way that this would look on a graph, is that on the bottom you can see those who specifically are focusing on getting mass appeal content out. They're typically helped by algorithms on social media platforms to reach millions of people, and they often generate very little income per member, fractions of a pence each, but then that adds up once you get to millions. Whereas we say independent news is much more geared towards a niche audience with relatively fewer members, but who are very committed. and those committed members are often willing to pay, especially if they're able to. And for their members who are not able to pay, they'd be happy to promote the content and do other things. So our specific focus here is like the niche content creators. And it's important for you to decide which category you fall under, because your strategy that follows as a result, and they fundamentally require different strategies. For niche content creators, the loyalty to the content creator itself typically is quite high. Your members, the people who follow your things, really like the look, flavor, and type of work that you specifically do. Whereas mass appeal, the loyalty often is not as high. At the end of the spectrum, if you consider those who produce TikTok content, for instance, often can get sometimes millions of views. But those viewers, if that TikToker is not there for a day or a week or so, they're not necessarily going to miss them. If it's entertainment, if it's comedy, they'll just flip over to another TikToker, right? Or if it's mainstream media, it's not too differentiated, right? Often, so there's not as much loyalty. And the loyalty matters, because if you have loyalty, you typically have pull power, which means you could ask your members, come and watch me on Twitch, or come and watch me on my own video channel. The growth strategy for niche is predominantly through referrals, and that is through asking existing members, can they promote it with their friends, family, and others, and working with similar content creators to essentially name drop each other. This is predominantly, as you'll be aware, the main strategy for growth, whereas mass appeal content is usually the algorithms that push you up. And naturally, the algorithms are not just unfavorable to niche content creators, but news specifically has this double problem that because of the category that you're in, the algorithms particularly single you out and don't help. One of the channels I follow closely is Secular Talk in the US, and they've been hovering around 1 million subscribers, or just under 1 million subscribers, for 4 years now, specifically because of the way the algorithms on YouTube treat them and other independent media. So the monetization strategy, predominantly for niche content creators, is direct to consumer. It's often a subscription, and your monetization model therefore leads to what type of content do you produce and who you're answerable to. And often the reason why independent media is so good is because you're not beholden to advertisers or others. That's what makes it unique, and that's what drives the loyalty. Whereas mass appeal is predominantly around views, and on these algorithms, it's a case of indirect monetization, predominantly through AdSense or essentially ads, and equally brand deals. And you can see there's a significant difference, as you already know. So the strategy becomes, the takeaway point is direct to consumer versus more of a YouTube and social media only approach. And so our strategy in the way that we work with partners, we tell them you ought to first release content to your active members on your own video channel, and then release it to the rest of your more passive audience on YouTube and social media and elsewhere. And that is the first step, is you build your own direct to consumer video channel. Quench provides the infrastructure to do that. There are others that do it as well. Second is to drive traffic to your own video channel. And third is release promos, teasers, or even the full content to the rest of YouTube, social media, and elsewhere. But perhaps if you're releasing the full content, you do it a few weeks later or a month or so later. And this does not, is increasingly the trend. So even if you consider major blockbuster movies now, they come out on the theater or cinema first, then they go into a streaming platform, and after a while they get distributed in multiple places. Equally, if I pick on news as a category specifically, I don't want to use this example, but Rumble, for instance, it's usually 2 hours on Rumble first, and then you release it elsewhere. Or Declassified UK, one of our partners, and naturally a much better example, they release content to their paid members for 2 weeks first, then they release it to their freemium members on the 3rd and the 4th week, so 2 weeks. For anyone who just provides an email address, doesn't pay, but just provides an email address, they get to watch that. And after the 4th week, it goes on YouTube and elsewhere. And they release a piece of content every 4 to 6 weeks, and that's essentially the pattern that works best for their strategy. And the goal here
Can I just jump in there and just mention around news that there are differing timelines then that potentially can, you can do pay per view, because a lot of people, you know, use news clips on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and stuff like that to drive in the way that you say. But you could do that instead of 2 hours early, it's half a day early, or it's a day early, or a week early. And think there's a whole range there. Just to clarify.
Very much so, absolutely. It's an hour, 2 hours, 2 days, 2 weeks, or even 3 months. And different categories have different strategies. For instance, if it's more on a health and fitness content types, it's more your catalog matters a lot more than how recent or how fresh it is. But news in particular, it's all about how recent or fresh it is, and that's why that is the major driver to pull members onto your own video channel. And I should say that the best strategy is actually to have the full length on your own video channel, but then pretty much straight away offer teasers or snippets out on social media, Twitter and elsewhere, but then constantly drive traffic back to your own site for people to watch the whole thing. And the goal is essentially to get as many of your viewers to become members and to offer you their email address in particular. And 95% of the members that you migrate, say, from your YouTube viewership onto your own video channel are typically going to be free members. And naturally, say typically you have, I'm just going to use simple numbers, 1,000 viewers on YouTube. You're only going to get about 10% of them to come over and watch it on your site. So let's say there's 100 that have now migrated onto your own site, your own video channel to watch it there, 10%. But they are your most committed members. And they come onto your video channel and they watch your content there first. The look and feel is essentially a premium user experience, very similar to iPlayer, Prime Video, Netflix. They're all, as you've noticed, like very similar. It's all a case of you have about a dozen video clips on there, and it's all about content is key and it's premium rather than the crowded social media space. And naturally, as I mentioned, it shouldn't be a case of it's either free or essentially publicly available, or you have to pay. There's a big middle ground there. It's the benefit of having members that are not paying but are giving you an email address in return for some of your content is pretty significant, which I'll go on to explain. So it's pretty normal to expect about 1 in every 20 to be a paying member and about 19 to be freemium members. And it's all fundamentally about segmenting your audience into passive and active. So you'd consider social media as your passive viewers, and that's important. It helps you get some exposure, and that should continue. But then it's a case of, okay, who is now an active member? And migrating, call it 10% over to your own video channel to watch content on there, and having a different offering for them. Some, in fact, most, 19 out of 20, will just be freemium members. They've given you an email address in return to watching some of your content. Some will be transactional buyers. Once or twice a year, they might pay £10 to watch a documentary, a key interview, an extended release, or whatever it may be. And the ambition is to get a segment of those to become regular buyers, whether that's through a subscription or an alternative. The key here really is segmenting all your potential viewers into passive versus active. And then within your active viewers, knowing this proportion, there's something for you just by giving your email address. There's something for you to buy from time to time. And there's, if you're able to afford to become a regular subscriber, then the option to do that as well. And now, once you've structured it that way, you're able to drive non-algorithmic growth. And if you recall what I said with the niche strategy, you really need to obsess and think about how to get beyond the algorithm world, right? And in a non-algorithmic world, the first key referral is asking your members to refer it. So typically, out of every, again, 20 members that you have, 19 are not paying, yet they often can't afford to pay, but they would want to help regardless. And asking them, if you want to watch this piece of content, pay if you can. And if you can't, what you can do is promote it to your friends anyway. So if they share your video channel with 10 friends and 10 friends click on it, that unlocks access to them, for instance. Either they can wait for 4 weeks to get it for free, or they share it ahead of time and are able to gain access. And what we find is typically out of every 10 people who are asked to share content, 1 of them does. And of every one that shares your content, they on average achieve 14 clicks. 14 people have clicked. And naturally, of those 14 who've clicked, some become members, they become more engaged, and over time, they become paying members. So this drives conversion and growth in a non-algorithmic sense through your members. And secondly, non-algorithmic growth through peer channels or similar channels. It's all around niche content creators grouping together with similar channels to promote each other's content. So for instance, if you have, say, your own content that you release, and you have a weekly show, and you might have a monthly extended interview or documentary or investigative journalistic piece, whatever it may be, as and when you have more premium content where you might charge £8 or £10 for someone to buy, you can partner with, say, 2 or 3 other similar sister channels, and you release on your video channel, you're promoting their paid content, and on their video channel, they promote your content. And if you have one of your members that clicks on one of the premium pieces of content and goes to a sister channel and pays there within the first year, then you would get 50% of whatever they spend as essentially like a referral. So in that way, you're sharing your membership, and you're able to extend the distribution for every piece of content that you produce. This is one approach to, or the first layer of collaborating with those who you want to in a structured way. The second is if you find that you have 3 or 4 channels that you are or outlets that you're very close to, you can start offering a bundled subscription. So let's say there are 4 of you, and each of you have a £5 a month subscription offering. You can offer if every member comes and wants to pay for that £5 a month, you can have an offering to say, well, for £10 a month, you get access to all 4 of our content. And that 50% discount will more than double your audience. And hence it's grouping together and essentially being able to grow together and relying on and leveraging each other's distribution to do more together. And what I've just described will become very similar to the way that guilds were formed and groups were formed. It's all about, if you're niche, you band together and you're able to do a lot more. And the last thing I'm going to share here in this presentation is content improvement tools and user insights. So getting the granular user level insights to constantly fine tune your content and to double down on what resonates. And one of the main advantages of video content over print content is that video content offers a lot more rich insights, or has the potential to. If you're only releasing it on YouTube and you're not doing more, then those insights predominantly go to YouTube. But so typically what you really want is how well a video is performed, and that is the natural data. But much more important is at a granular user level, how your most committed members are engaging with your content. And it's this granular user level data that really helps you get really intimate and insights onto how your members are watching your content, and therefore being able to double down on it. And a key part of having members coming on your own video channel to watch content is they will know that by doing so, they're helping give you the signals for you to double down on what is working and what isn't. So again, hypothetically, let's say you have your own video channel, and the first row or the first carousel is your weekly show or a weekly commentary. The second carousel is a documentary or an interview you do once a month. Then you're considering adding a new category of content, and it could be sports commentary, the arts, or international news. What you would do is you'd produce a video for each, release it to your members, and then get very granular on who is watching it and who likes it and what do they think, before you double down and say, okay, the data suggests that the strategy ought to be, for the next category, we ought to double down on, say, international news, and you're able to proceed accordingly. Equally, if you're producing a type of content and you want to vary that a little bit, you'd see how your base or how your committed members are engaging with that before you continue developing it or not. And this granular level insights is what drives those at the very forefront of content production to constantly fine-tune and improve their content. And this data at a granular level is so important that I can give you the example of Alexa, Amazon's Alexa, and the BBC iPlayer. You will not be able to play any of the BBC radio channels on Amazon's Alexa. And the reason is that it's not because of aggregate data, because both the BBC and Alexa play tens of millions of radio stations on an annual basis. What really matters is that the BBC really wants to know at a user granular level, these users, what radio stations are they listening to, for how long, and so on, so that they can fine tune and improve their offering. And again, it's you having the tools to get really granular on who is watching, how in depth is it, and what's you should focus on. Equally, you might decide that these are the top 50 most committed members who really engage with my content more than anyone. I want to invite them specifically for a screening, or I might want to give them a message of thank you, or have a specific survey instead of releasing it to 10,000 people on Instagram or Twitter, where you can have some passive members just commenting or liking something, versus sending that to 500 who know your content intimately, and as a result of getting their insights, it's a lot more pure, as opposed to might have signals that are not as useful. And with that, this is our team. We've worked hard to have a world-class team dedicated to essentially building the infrastructure, and we should be thought of as partners. Whether you use our infrastructure or anyone else's, this is more an approach and a strategy that we can see working specifically for niche content creators. And we have for those who are interested, if you wanted to do a screening, whether it's in Oxford or in London, a recording space, or you wanted to spend time with one of our consultants to just help you fine-tune how to produce videos, how to ensure it does well to your base and members, and equally, when you have small segments that you want to release on social media, what things you ought to do to ensure that it goes viral and gets as much attention as possible. And if this is an example of just our consultant would spend an hour or two with you, understand your content strategy, and for instance, tell you if you're creating thumbnails, these are some of the techniques that you ought to think about and use in order to make sure it does well on the algorithms when you're promoting one of your key pieces of content, for instance. And finally, this is a bit of a summary in that we find that most who are niche content creators are actually deploying what should be a mass appeal content strategy, and it really doesn't work. Typically, if you're just producing content and you're just releasing on YouTube, you have the algorithmic dependency, you have lack of control, there's a commodification issue. These big tech platforms, they're designed to commodify you and to make you very substitutable, and crucially, if you're news, not to drive traffic to you. And it drives unpredictable income because it's AdSense, and your content isn't designed to catch the algorithms. And therefore, the strategy ought to be the other end of the spectrum, which you're doubling down on your active audience, your members, you have direct relationships on your own infrastructure, you're driving non-algorithmic growth, and you have predictable income because you're driving subscriptions. Or one-off purchases, so that you're catching every single user segment and based on what they can afford and based on how they can contribute. So mass appeal, this is where niche content wins at this bottom right-hand side. And if you have mass appeal content that's designed to get millions of views, it's the top left. And in essence, our focus is for niche content creators that are creating content for people, for their members, as opposed to content creators that are focused on catching the algorithms and going viral. And with that, I shall pause for any questions.
Lovely, thank you. I've got a question to start with, so I'll let Sasha and Ricky draft some questions now. Hopefully they've done some during the thing, but there's a couple of things that immediately come to mind in regards to members. One of them is how mobile first is the site? Like, will you be able to have short video that's recorded vertically, or is this built really for viewing horizontal, sort of TV style, laptop screen style?
So we are video first and mobile first. So it's all is designed to first optimize for mobile phones and like devices like tablets, but then you have desktop as well. It's predominantly, typically, short and medium form, predominantly, especially with Gen Z viewers, as like mobile phones. And then if you have feature length, like 1 hour content pieces, more typically it's usually viewed on desktops. And your question on is it optimized for vertical or not? It is very much dependent on the partner and how they produce the video. We can host vertical ones as well as horizontal ones. The key thing is you can have a Vimeo embed, a YouTube embed, or our own hosted option. And it's across the board. It's predominantly you take care of how it's which type you want. What typically works best is again, if it's short form, bearing in mind that this is going to be consumed on phones or smartphones, and if it's long form, having it more designed for like a desktop experience.
It brings me to the second question, which is around the the potentials, and I wouldn't imagine you've got an answer for this now, but it's maybe something to think about, but the potential for supporting print publications or written publications, you know, largely like blogs, emails, letters, you know, news websites that largely produce stuff through writing. You know, one of the things that we've been suggesting is that people start utilizing TikTok as a way of telling people the stories that they're putting out in writing, because it's the quickest way. Video tends to be quite like a labor intensive and skill intensive process. So like if you've not got the skills, you're not got the time, then how are you going to change your written stuff into video? That's been a real problem. You know, someone like Ricky's very good at making proper, you know, really high quality video, but we were saying, you know, do it to your phone. Do you think there'd be any space for that on the platform? You know, like, because I do see TikTok as a major video platform, but it is largely people talking to a phone.
Yeah, absolutely. What we suggest is you leverage all the approaches that work, but crucially, you make social media work for you as opposed to you working for social media, meaning you have your own site and you have your own content there. If I just quickly share my screen again to show you what I mean. And then when you produce content, this is declassified, we sort of have their permission to share it. And here they have their different content, and you can see the latest documentaries, Exiles versus Oligarchs, that their members watch it here first before it's then released on YouTube. Around 6 to 8 weeks ago, they did Blowback, which is another piece of documentary and so on. So you'd release it here on your own video site, and as you saw, it's like declassifieduk.org. But you then take little snippets and you push that on TikTok, you push that on Twitter, you push that everywhere else. But then the links that you put on there drives everyone back to your own organization as declassifieduk.org. So that you're getting people to subscribe to your newsletter, and for them to then have content that they watch, and then you maintain and retain them on your own sites.
Yeah,
but you should absolutely leverage TikTok and any other platform that helps you.
Could you host that style of video production is what I'm saying, because most of the stuff on there looks really pretty. And I'm just saying, if there's like anything for the really basic, you know, like I say, for the teams of people who, you know, a lot of independent media are 1-2 person operations, right? And they're telling stories about their local communities. They're telling stories that no one else is covering. They're not getting paid for it. Usually they're getting paid really badly. They don't have any time, but they're producing great content. And maybe we can say to them, you could do this one thing, which is, you know, just tell the story that you've just written out to your phone. But do you think that would look okay? Would that be something they could build? Would that work through Quench, that kind of way of producing content, or would that be a little too basic?
No, absolutely. So although we are focused on a premium experience, that doesn't in any way mean that the content you host needs to be expensive to produce. One of the best things that's happened for media, especially video media, in the last 5 to 10 years is high quality recording equipment that has become very affordable. So in fact, a growing number of our partners are producing content at actually very low budgets. And often we book recording studios for them. We cover the costs. We help them with editing. I should say we specifically only really do this with independent news, not other categories, just because, as I said, Salman and I and some of the team are particularly followers of independent news. So the crucial becomes as a content production strategy and a distribution and monetization strategy. We're helping with that. We don't really get involved in the content production as such. But the answer to your question is a growing number of sort of the new wave of content producers are some of the best are low cost production, but their members love the authenticity of it. And the challenge becomes, if you just release it on TikTok and someone's swiping through, they just get lost and they won't remember who you are. Whereas if you create a gripping 30 or 60-second piece that makes them want to go into your description and then link through to your site and give you an email address so that they can follow your content in a longer term basis, maybe in 6 months' time, purchase something or recommend your site, that's really the journey you ought to prioritize taking them on. Okay. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, and extra thoughts as well. Ricky, do you have any questions as a video producer? You're on mute, by the way, before you dive in. Yeah, do you because you do a lot of video production, but you're 1-2 person operation in many regards. So
Yeah.
Great to get your thoughts.
I've probably got 2 or 3 questions, but I think first of all, I mean, I think you've answered this in some ways, but currently, like what we do is put out stuff on YouTube, Twitter, sometimes Insta, sometimes Facebook, and what we're trying to do with that is take people back to our site, which we've also got at the website, and then on there we get subscribers to a newsletter. So there are a lot of elements there of what you're kind of describing in terms of trying to get a niche audience and so on. And I guess the first question is what are you offering that adds to that? Because you know, in some ways we're already doing all that. So I'd like to know, and I think you have answered it a little bit, but if you could kind of pinpoint what you think the advantages are, first of all, that would be good.
Absolutely. It's part of it depends on your perspective on the future. Is the future going to trend increasingly towards video, or is it going to stay on like more of in a print-based or print-first world? And what we find, especially with Gen Z, obviously it's not just Gen Z, but especially with Gen Z, is because they're increasingly used to video, anything that is not video just immediately is far less of interest to them. So the question becomes, of every 100 people who land on your site, is one giving you an email address, or is it 2 or 3 on your current state? And if you were to offer video content and give them a greater incentive to give an email address to maybe access content early and so on, can you drive that 1 in 100 to be 5 in 100 or 10 in 100, crucially? So it's more a question of offering video content to significantly drive conversions. And naturally, one is getting your passive viewers becoming active members by giving your email addresses. The second is, now that you have their emails, you might send a newsletter once a week or once a month, which is good, but giving them a whole suite of things to potentially purchase if they want to. So every 3 months, you now have a feature-length documentary or a feature-length interview where you for a week or for even 24 hours, some can pay to watch it and others essentially not. So it's leveraging and seeing what can be done with those who become members and giving them different options to make purchases. Because what you'd find is typically the top 15% of your members are actually not just happy to pay, but often they're looking for more reasons to pay more because they're absolutely in love or very committed to independent news and they want to support you more. And just giving them the chance to be able to do that. At the same time, your content, you want to reach as many as possible. So it's the initial phase of a day designed to maximize how much funding you can get so that you can produce more great content. And day 2 onwards becomes a case of giving it to as many people who want to watch it as possible for free. So the answer really we find it drives up conversions to both mailing lists and secondly to becoming paying users.
Right. Okay. And how would that be different from something like Vimeo, where you can already do that to some extent?
Not a ton of difference insofar as the tech infrastructure goes. So we've made it a lot more user friendly. So for us, it's a £25 flat monthly fee, and it's not transaction related. So you can generate £1,000 a month in income or £1 million in income. We don't charge a commission based on essentially the transactions that you follow. We, again, because of our specific interest in independent media, we're not going to charge any of your members anything for next year, 2023. So if you are interested and you want to sign up, naturally, you'd let us know that you're coming through this group, and there'll be no charges. In 2024 onwards, if you like what you're using and you see the value, it'd be £25 a month. That is predominantly to cover our costs, because when we host your content, we have server costs and so on. But the Vimeo part, it's not really designed to be, it's part of it's a tech infrastructure at a much higher cost, but it's really designed to take free members and push them to paid members. And that's somewhat of a leap. Whereas what we are able to offer is that 19 and 20, the freemium members, and giving them the chance to promote your content or give you granular insights. That's the bit that is really missing to a large extent. Equally, Patreon is, again, going from 0 to now becoming a paid subscriber. As of next quarter, or essentially January, Patreon members will be able to log into a Quench-powered site, because, again, we're agnostic as to who's paying, because we don't charge a commission on who's paying. But crucially is to get insights from the 19 and 20 freemium members, and it's to ask them to promote it where they want to help, but they're not able to afford to pay or support financially.
Okay, yeah. No, that sounds quite interesting. So the other question I wanted to ask is I don't know if you can answer this for me, but particularly, I'm pretty much a one-man band here. And when you're talking about offering people things ahead of putting it on social media, and then these different stages of getting people. I'm already finding, as an example, a couple of weeks ago, I was at the National Gallery, when those kids threw tomato soup at the painting, at the glass on the painting, I should add. And I came out of there, went straight home, edited a nice little piece with subtitles. I put it out and I got a few thousand views because the person that had taken the video on their phone and put it straight out on social media got 20 million views. And I do think that, okay, so because a lot of our stuff is that kind of breaking news, if I am putting something up on here and expecting people to pay and then put it out a week later on social media, I'm kind of losing a huge potential audience. And I don't know, so there's that aspect to it. I don't know, because we do so much breaking news, I don't know how effective this would be at building an audience. And the other thing is that just in terms of content, for someone like me that is a one-man band, there's a difficulty in I need to put all my content out there, because otherwise, I don't know what I can hold back, because there isn't that much content. Do you see what I mean? So can you see any ways around that, and how you can amplify that?
Yes. So breaking news, the speed of release matters. So in essence, it ought to be released straight away. And that kind of news specifically is a case of getting as many people in the world to watch it as possible. And because of the nature of that specific content, that could reach millions. So the strategy there ought to be, it's released on the site, that let's say a 30 or 60 second segment, and everyone sees it. Naturally, if they have to land on your page, they're more likely, you have so many more visitors that they're more likely to give an email address. But crucially, what you may want to do is, in addition to that minute long that is shared on your own site for people to land on your own site, in addition to that, is to have a 10 or 20 minute or even 5-minute interview with those who did that, and give a bit more of a story. And in order for everyone to see that fully, they just have to enter their email address to watch it. So none of that experience at any point in that example should be paid whatsoever, but it could be used as an opportunity to gather 10,000 emails. It really could be. And I follow Stop Oil, but you and I mean, on their Instagram posts, within 24 hours, they usually get 2,000 views, right? And it's everyone else who's distributing their content gets millions, but they themselves only get 2,000 views. And even on their Zoom calls, those Zoom calls should have tens of thousands of viewers, not fewer. So if they were on their own site able to get all the traffic there in return for email addresses, they wouldn't have to be as reliant on Instagram, which over time is probably going to give them even less traffic for as you'd expect. It's the goal here is to get out to the algorithm world and to collect email addresses, but doesn't have payment should only come in certain relevant areas.
Right. No, that's a lot of food for thought. Okay, thank you. Shall I hand over? Sorry, Saoirse, do you want to ask again?
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's not really a question, just to confirm something. So one of the differences with Quench compared to Vimeo or something else is the opportunity to collaborate with other content creators with regards to kind of promoting work, right?
Correct.
Referring to each other, so we could potentially make money that way, but I'm thinking more in terms of our creators on the ground. We get the opportunity to then refer to and connect up with much larger scale independent media organizations.
Precisely.
And the grassroots.
Very much so. So the way that we built it from the beginning has been, from the very outset, has been designed to think through how to maximize traffic and it's how to facilitate collaboration. YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, they don't want collaboration. They want to modularize, commodify, and make you substitutable. But in a niche content world, your power predominantly comes from your traffic, and when you group and bundle together, it's like stronger together, which is you'd be very familiar with. And in that sense, when you have let's say you can have 4 outlets, each producing content, and each, let's say they have 2 or 3 rows or carousels of content on their own individual sites. There is nothing stopping one that, let's say, is a bit bigger, promoting the 2 or 3 smaller ones and helping drive traffic to them. And when you want to move towards asking for subscriptions, if you're in a position to have more content that is released, maybe the 4 of you grouping together, and therefore as a result you're able to produce more content, you're more likely to be able to ask for a subscription. And grouping together and bundling together is fundamentally to how we've architected and structured it to enable.
And just to confirm, there's no ads on this site.
There's zero ads.
Plans to
We have no. So we don't have any ads whatsoever. We do have a program that will be released next year, where you have to remember, we're the tech infrastructure to your brand and your site and everything. So we offer you the infrastructure to do ads should you want to, but you don't have to. Just so you know, it's not like seeing Oral-B or McDonald's or Coca-Cola type of ads. It is very much, if you are a content creator or channel that is helping people become better marketing sort of product managers or marketing people, and you have a group of 1,000 people watching every week, you may have a company that advertises the chance for you to apply to that company, and it's much more high-end niche advertising in that sense. That's for next year. But for the category of independent news, we will offer the chance for you to promote let's say you have an hour-long feature or a half-an-hour feature, mid-reel, you can offer the chance for donations to go to a charity that you care about or for a cause. It's completely your site, so you don't. You could have you could leverage your traffic to help causes that you care about. So it's adverts in that sense, or promoting a documentary that you want people to watch in the middle of your content. That's the type. So it's ads in one sense, but it's purely your decision to put it in or not. We're going to give you the infrastructure to do that should you want to.
And just to build upon that, we're doing a consultation coming up soon for Independent Media Association members. Do check it out. It's really easy and fun to fill in, and it will give you an option to direct things. And one of the projects that we could potentially carry out is trying to work on building an ethical advertising agency, working with one of our members, Ethical Consumer, and other organizations like that. And having an easy method for them to be able to sponsor your content directly with ethical advertisers that you can be proud of and that we don't believe would affect your independence will be an avenue that we could be exploring. And so do check out the consultation for that, and something we might like to work with Quench upon as well. We've certainly done a little bit of groundwork that we could talk to you about. And just to build upon Ricky's point, when you're doing news, which Ricky does, it's all about getting stuff out very quickly. There is still potentially in production schedule. I know the contacts that Real Media has and others do, where you could do an in-depth interview, which would be like more evergreen and could definitely, be something that you put behind a paywall. And it sounds like Quench would give you some support in both ideas around marketing, technical uploads and stuff like that, and support around there, which I don't think when we've looked at these projects before, there's been that much support. But anyways, Ricky, you had another question.
Yeah. So, first of all, is Quench already running, and what sort of what have you got out there at the moment? What are your channels? So, is it what I'm trying to get at is how specific is it to independent media, or is this just like a little bit that you're doing?
It's not. So we've been going from the beginning of year, January. So we're pretty much coming on to being just about a year old. We're a team of 15. We are, insofar as we've got just about 100 creators, fewer than 5 are in independent media. So independent media is relatively small, but it's more a personal interest and passion of ours. We want independent media to do well. That's why we'd go out of our way to make sure independent media succeeds, in essence, if that answers your question.
Yeah, okay. And then the other question, I always follow the money. How are you funded then? And how are you hoping to be funded? Because,
we are venture backed. We're venture backed. So we've raised £4 million to be specific. It's not public. We are somewhat lucky. Most of the team here are from my previous company, Quench. So Quench is due to IPO next year for $2 billion. So the investors have seen a strong track record, and therefore they're happy to invest without, just based on what the future might hold. And we've told them what the futures hold. We're betting against YouTube. We've said that YouTube is only a fit for a viral mass appeal content, and what's going to emerge is going to be 1,000 or more niche verticals. Let's say Twitch is one of them. There's going to be 1,000 more. We're going to provide a tech infrastructure for those to emerge. They're only going to emerge if we make the user experience premium, and we enable them to start partnering with each other more and offering bundled subscriptions more. That's our essential proposal to them, if that answers your question.
Yeah, and just lastly on that then, I think I understood that you're suggesting a year of basically free for
all of 2023. Yeah, anyone who
and
signs
then
up,
a subscription after. Yeah.
Naturally, when you do sign up and the first chance you get to speak with a team member, do let us know that you're from the IMA or like a member. And the answer is yes, 0 charges. It's not just for using the platform, but as I say, us booking the recording space, our theater, anything that you need, our consultations with videographers, sound editors, all that. We don't really get actively involved with editing your content, but anything outside of that, you will not be charged by us in any way for until 2024. And in 2024, if you find value, it's essentially £25 a month for the infrastructure.
Well, that all sounds great. I mean, there's always the thing, you know, I spoke to Thomas about this earlier, that I've seen a few attempts at putting together a video strategy, a place where you can put all independent media and for it to work. But I do think there's definitely some fresh ideas here, and the way you've explained the niche versus the usual social media does make a lot of sense. So I'll certainly be looking at it. Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. I think that covers most of the questions that our members would have, but I also feel like what you've made very clear is that you would be available for question support and consultation. It's exactly the kind of thing I think we really want for our members, is, you know, that open dialogue, that love of independent media, and the recognition and knowledge that, yeah, we're all making it up as we go along on shoestring budgets, but we're doing, you know, real work. And that the independent media sector is the only sector, when we talk to the NUJ, for instance, where it's growing. The rest of the media is not. In terms of news media is not growing. It is shrinking in the traditional sense. And even those ones that have been the traditional establishment media that have tried to transition to website based stuff and things like that, they are sacking people all the time. We're the only sector that's growing, so we can be proud of that and hopeful. And it will be initiatives like this that capitalize on it, hopefully, and push us to a next level. I really hope that's the case. I hope everyone who's watching this at home got a lot from it, or wherever you're watching it, and maybe you're watching it with people, you cool guys. Do get in touch with me, thomas@ima.press, anytime, and I work Mondays to Tuesdays, so I'll always get back to you then, but ideally, hopefully, anytime. And drop stuff in the WhatsApp group if you're part of that, or whatever. Reach out to us, ask questions. We'll put you in touch with Quench, or reach out to Quench directly if you want to know more. And there might be more developments in the future if we have a chat and see if we can collaborate further. So yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll catch you soon.